You can easily screw up a
So let me just show you most of the game.
Somebody's lying.
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. My PS3 didn't shut off because the cutscenes were so long it thought I wasn't playing, and I didn't necessarily fall asleep. But let's just take it slow.
So, Metal Gear Solid 4. It starts off good. War becomes routine just like Metal Gear games have become routine for Kojima. The Patriots control everything and all the soldiers now have nanomachines that enhances their abilities. So give some fresh soldiers some nano crack and all of a sudden you have a legendary hero. It even suppresses diarrhea. Really cool stuff in the first sections of the game. But first, you have to wait 17 minutes for the game to install, which reminds me of the good old days of dial-up internet and AOL free trials in cereal boxes. Then when you start the game, you get interrupted with a cutscene every time Snake takes a few steps. When you can actually start playing, I was having a blast. Wait, you don't have to use first person in order to use your gun? Wait, you don't have to go into the menu to change your camo? You can crouch sneak? This is like an upgraded MGS3. Well, at least when it comes down to gameplay. They didn't go back to the good old vision cones. The enemies can still see you if you're in their line of sight, and you still have a camo number, but this time you have the amazing Octo Camo. Then when it comes down to the controls, they were simplified. Beforehand, you had to hold down a couple buttons and then softly caress the square button to aim down your sights without shooting in MGS3. Now it's just one button in MGS4, and you can switch between first person with one button. It's finally fun to play Metal Gear without spending hours learning how to control Snake efficiently. It still has some sections where the sneaking is slow paced, depending on how you want to play. But this time there's a lot more going on around you. In the first sections of the game, you're in the middle of a war zone, something that was always talked about in the series, but was never in the game. For the lack of better word, story of my life, it's really cool to see the war going on in the background while you're sneaking. And then terrifying when you see those geckos with sexy legs. Even later when you're overpowered and you have an arsenal of weapons and they can't even touch you, it's still creepy, like killing a roach. You know that you're not going to die, but it's still unpleasant. Plus, secretly you're thinking, this will be the roach to have wings. Otacon tells Snake that he isn't on either side of the fighting, but you always see the rebels getting smashed by the PMC. It's hard not to root for them, especially with the gecko chasing you everywhere. There is a section where you're sneaking through a base with captured rebel soldiers, and sure, you can let them be, but that's when, you see soldiers taking them around the back and doing God knows what. And if you alert the guard, they just murder them all. Now, the cool thing is that you can actually use these guys as a distraction. If you free them, they'll go and attack other soldiers. Yeah, they just kind of die and mostly useless, but it's a cool little thing that I wish he used more of. You now have a big area to sneak through. It's mostly linear unless you go guns blazing, but it adds a good sense of scale. Enemies are constantly running by you and you're just sitting there just trying to blend in. It's not just patrols anymore. They even threw a few scripted events in there. And because the controls are actually intuitive for once, quick reactions when the situation presents itself feels good. Again, it's always satisfying in a stealth game to just miss detection, especially when it's the player that made it happen. The Octo Camo is perfect in these moments. All you have to do is wait a moment and the suit changes its texture, sometimes identical to your grandma's curtains.
Oh, the eye patch.
I never wanted to intentionally play non-lethal until this game. Later, you meet an interesting gun launcher that allows you to easily make tons of war fun bucks just by walking over guns on the floor, getting rewarded if you decide to go Call of Duty style. Coming from what you know about the previous games and how they show war in not a positive light, it's hard to just mow down all these soldiers to get some extra blood money. It's almost a bit overkill how much money you can get that you don't even need. Kojima has always talked about the horrors of war, but this is just straight up in the gameplay. So I decided early on to go non-lethal, but I may have let a grenade slip during a boss fight. On the other hand though, I thought Metal Gear was about stealth, not collecting tons of guns and murdering everyone in sight. I mean, they give you so much incentive. The controls are better. You don't even have an opportunity to use them all. And also, in the previous games, when you set the alarm off, it was a game-ending punishment. But here, the enemies are so distracted by the fighting, you just run away like the gingerbread man until the time runs out. And if you're impatient, you can just shoot your way out. I don't get the same feeling that I got with the other games of the, oh crap, I want to start over and do it perfect. So there's no point in throwing grenades at your feet or taking a fake death pill to restart from checkpoint. The only thing you have to really worry about is controlling your stress meter. If it gets too high, then Snake will have problems performing, as we all do when we get older. He will have trouble aiming and might pass out, and of course, more back pain. To lower your stress, you can do things like read an adult magazine in the middle of a war zone, or smoking, which is bad for your health. But the best option is using a cardboard box. It's super overpowered, but a hilarious good Easter egg.
Snake, what are you doing?
I'm in a box. Suddenly I got this irresistible urge to get inside, and then when I put it on, I suddenly got this feeling of inner peace.
Too bad there isn't more charm taken from MGS3 because MGS4, the movie, needed it. There are 20 to 40 minute cutscene chunks throughout this whole 20-hour game. Sure, it's what we have come to expect, but the problem has gotten out of hand. Like someone let Kojima off his leash. Metal Gear has always had way too long camera shots together with slow scenes. Now you get more of it. During the mission briefings, you just feel like you're watching Snake's vlogs on YouTube. Just a ton of empty character development with long pauses. Sometimes, even when things get hype, it's slow. After you meet Big Mama, they say you have 5 minutes until the gecko attack, but Eva's over here enjoying the vibrations. Again, this happens in the other games, but it's just more pronounced here. There's this scene in MGS3 where Eva and Big Boss is having this moment, while all hell is breaking loose behind them. If they would have just kept going instead of stopping and talking about their feelings, then they could have gotten away from Vogan. No reason for a boss fight. Now, you can say it's charm in some cases, but then you have scenes like Snake just standing around at the intro for no reason while everyone dies around him. Or the first time he sees Liquid and Naomi, just long, drawn-out shots with a trained, legendary spy being out in the open where he's supposed to be stealthed. Why does Snake just run out to Liquid with tons of soldiers around when we just spent an hour sneaking into the base? Why does Meryl do the exact same thing? Oh, another one is when the frogs are just waiting for Raiden to show up and save Snake. It's like they're all on stage and Raiden is late on his appearance, so they just wait.
Get up! On your feet, Snake!
Metal Gear has always had problems, and most of the time I really enjoyed it. But for some reason, MGS4, it doesn't put you in a mood for garbage.
We should have tried just a little bit harder.
Oh, at least if you need a pee, you can just pause instead of using a Mountain Dew can or whatever. To give an example, after 4 hours of gameplay from when you start Act 1 to the beginning of Act 2 in this 5-act game, you have sat through around 100 minutes of cutscenes. I'd rather watch the Goofy movie for a 5th time. By the end of the game, you have watched around 9 hours of Kojima just feeling himself. But at least we can all be happy that the Kodak conversations are not all in the Kodak, so the gameplay is not interrupted every time Otacon wants to give us a tip. Now, not all the cutscenes are boring. There are a few good moments where I was genuinely impressed how easily I got sucked into these action scenes. And the transitions from cutscene to gameplay gel really well, reminding me a lot of Uncharted. Everyone likes to hate on Raiden, but some of my favorite cutscenes has him slicing through juicy legs. I actually quite like Raiden's story in this, and when I say like, understand there isn't much to choose from. It's because Kojima's trying to tell a story with a lot of strings, wrapping up all the past games into one colossal mutated goop. You got Rose, the Colonel, Gray Fox, Raiden, Edward from Twilight, Liquid, Eva, Mei Ling, Johnny, Meryl, Naomi. They even have Olga's daughter in this. Everyone's here for one final family reunion to end Solid Snake's story, because Kojima doesn't want anyone to make Metal Gear games without him. Well, except Pachinko machines.
ザボスの抹殺スネークやるしかないんだわかるな彼女は敵だ敵10年も一緒にいた
This is what happens when someone doesn't want to make something but is forced to. We finally get to play with Snake since the bobblehead MGS1 days, and now it's just too late. It's almost depressing to see the life sucked out of Snake. He gets pulled in for one last mission for like the 20th time. Snake is reduced to an old grandpa that constantly gets told not to smoke. He also goes a bit overboard in a very obvious way.
Experience was simply too much to bear.
I swear Kojima wants you to hate Snake, or like him depending on, what you're into. But the Snake shaming doesn't stop there. He's even called Old Snake, and every time someone makes fun of him, his stamina drops down like some comedy bit.
But from where I'm sitting, Old Snake seems a little more appropriate.
MGS4 killed the character, and by the end, you want Snake to pull the trigger. The only redeeming factor of Snake is even though he's old and beat up, he continues to press on even though everyone is telling him, you should sit this one out. But other than that, Kojima made Snake a shell of his former self, making it crystal clear that Snake is not going to last. Right in the beginning, you're hit with, oh, he's rapidly aging. And if that's not enough, Naomi tells him that Foxdie is mutating, turning his body into a weapon of mass destruction, and will spread the virus everywhere, killing everyone. It seems a little forced, which doesn't put you in the greatest mood for the rest of the story. But tough luck, because there's gonna be a lot of story, on top of more story. Even after the credits, all of a sudden it turns into an infomercial. But wait! There's more! You find out that the Foxdie isn't gonna turn Snake into Ebola because of that one black guy gave him a shot of the new Foxdie that countered the old Foxdie. But it doesn't matter because he's gonna die anyway with the rapid aging, and I stopped liking Snake as a character. Plus, Big Boss shows up out of nowhere. I just spaced out until I saw him dying. Again. Because the new Foxdie was apparently made to kill Big Mama, Liquid Ocelot, and Big Boss. You know when you go into a theater to watch a film because you're a fan of the subject, and a few minutes later you notice that you made a big mistake, but you feel like you need to grit your teeth because you owe it to yourself and just try to enjoy it? I was hoping Metal Gear Solid 4 would be more of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I got a Transformers instead. If the games never continued past the first, second, or even third, we would have gotten a decent ending for Snake instead of this pieced together with duct tape story. An ending that fans could make up for themselves. I still go back to see Snake riding into the sunset at the end of MGS1. For me, the Mass Effect series ended at Mass Effect 2.
This is the last chapter in this Snake's life.
One of my favorite things of the series has been a bit altered. The presentation is great for each member of the Beauty and the Beast unit, being a mixture of the previous bosses in the series. Each member's name is derived from a member of Foxhound in MGS1, weapons from Dead Cell members in MGS2, and emotions from the Cobra unit in MGS3. For example, Crying Wolf, her name and fighting style is taken from Sniper Wolf, the railgun from Fortune, and the emotion from the Sorrow. You know, it's funny that they matched these three together. Every time I think about Sniper Wolf, I think about Otacon crying over her, and how he has grown as a character. Oh wait, he didn't, because he's crying again in MGS4. What a missed opportunity to develop the character. Kojima could have went with the hardened route where Otacon is broken up inside so he's not showing any emotion because all his loved ones keep dying every single game. It could have tied in so nicely with the end scene with Sunny, telling her not to leave, and even maybe then he cries because he doesn't want to lose her. Or, you know, I would have settled with, you know, a single manly tear, anything but this.
I'm done crying.
Anyways, the bosses are pretty easy. Nothing special, nothing to write your dad in jail about. Most of the time you're just wailing on them with your big huge guns, where some of the older bosses took a little practice to get a nice headshot to gap the boss's health. It's more satisfying to see that you did work for learning the controls. Not to say that I want to have these controls back, because no, I don't. But they really didn't design the bosses with this in mind to compensate for the easier handling. Now you just pray and spray, hoping to chip some damage. And if you run out of bullets, you can just buy some from that guy you know from the hood. There are some cool moments like Laughing Octopus turning into Naomi and the Mark II, or chasing Crying Wolf in the snow with my RPG sniper, tossing shots out like we in the club. Sure, the night vision is a little OP here, but it's easily the most enjoyable. Partly because of the nostalgia of the Sniper Wolf fight, and partly because it's the only one where you don't have to point and spray. With the boss fight with Raging Raven trying to follow a moving target with analog sticks while chipping little pieces of health wasn't fun. I just ended up letting her see me so I can give her rockets to the face. They're all really mediocre bosses, missing that little detail that we have come to love. What makes it worse is that they're just violently cut into the story. No one mentions the Beauty and Beast unit other than Drebin. He gives this MGS1 fan service of giving backstory to each boss. After defeating a Beauty, Drebin calls you up with a bedtime story of how that particular member got post-traumatic stress disorder. The stories have as much depth as his own character does. I'd rather hear more about the diaper monkey. But wait, you guessed it, there's more. After defeating a beast, they will turn into a beauty. And they are putting the camera in all types of places. But that's what everyone sees. If you wait and torture yourself through the audio adventure they take you on, they take you to a little Easter egg. You get transported to an appropriate colored white room that constantly plays moaning. And if you take your camera out, she will actually pose for you. It's like watching an anime with too much fan service, where people that don't know anything about anime think anime is about. You can totally walk away from this game and say, oh, this was some weeaboo. This is not only present in the bosses, it's in other areas of the game too, just in different forms. Like all the frogs being women, and they always show up in times where it's inconvenient to use the trank gun. I ain't gonna lie, I had to whip it out real quick to handle some business, and I always feel like I made a mistake. But is that the point? Because the frogs are all women, I'm not supposed to shoot them because of morals? Maybe some social commentary there? but any point he was trying to make goes out the window when you put everything together. Why is that knife there, and why does Naomi grab it like that? What's going on? It's like it was made by a horny teenager.
JD is in a synchronous elliptical orbit, so its next perigee should be in,
Got it! 15 hours, 6 minutes, and 12 seconds.
Right. In 15 hours, it's going to be over the Bering Sea, 494 nautical miles from the Bering Strait. The enemy relies entirely on electronic means of threat detection, so they won't be able to see the Missouri until they surface. Hakiba!
Oh god.
So let's get into it. MGS4 takes the cast of MGS3 and throws them right under a moving bus. All the nice people you worked with, Zero, Paramedic, Sigint, all founding members of the Patriots and caused all the horrible events that happened throughout the series. Paramedic? She helped create the clones of Big Boss, and apparently Eva gave birth to the clones Solid Snake and Liquid. Paramedic is also responsible for using Gray Fox as a guinea pig and Frankensteined him together. You remember Zero, the one who loves him some 007? Well, he's the demon lord of the Patriots and the one who recruited Eva and Ocelot. And in the after credit scene, you get to see 20 minutes of Snake's daddy coming back, giving him a manly hug, and murdering poor old Zero, that apparently did all these horrible things. Remember Sigint? His real name is Donald Anderson. He's the DARPA chief that died in MGS1 by Psychomantis. How unsatisfying is that? Here's a side note, just to change the mood. In a leaked document of MGS3, I found out that he was supposed to be portrayed as a Will Smith type, which makes a lot of sense.
Snake, what's up? Why are you naked?
It feels good.
Man, you do whatever you want.
I will, thanks. Just one question, though.
What?
Is there a way to take off my pants?
Say what?
My pants, can I?
Oh, hell no! This Fox unit is a nut fest!
I am a big show watcher, and the best shows are the shows that know where they're going. The writer has an outline of the beginning, middle, and end, with some meat in between. It's so clear that Kojima wasn't planning on continuing the series after the crazy events of MGS2. There is nothing in MGS3 that even slightly hints at Big Boss's team completely transforming into a Decepticon. Only Big Boss has a valid reason to go to the dark side. I remember when you first meet Eva, aka Big Mama, and she's holding this freaking apple as she goes on and on about this non-cohesive, metaphoric caveman backstory of how all this went down. Sure, if you turn your brain off, get some cheese puffs, and you're into this sort of thing, it might tickle you in a way that Jurassic World did. I'm all for overacting and funny plot holes, but I was not entertained. It sometimes felt like I was watching a full-length movie about the Riddler, and the whole cast was the Riddler, because everyone is speaking in riddles like they're trying hard to be cryptic, or it's just a really bad translation.
Scorched shadows born to the world. When a beast steps into the light, unless the light is put out, the shadow cannot be erased.
Some things can be forgiven for the sake of fun, and some things are just a little lazy. There is a part where Eva throws herself into the fire because she thought that Big Boss was dying. But it's clearly not Big Boss because Big Boss is missing his right eye, not his left. Solidus is missing his left eye, but most importantly, you know that Eva knows that in the scene where she mistakes Snake for Big Boss. There's a difference between an entertaining wackiness like Ocelot using his hands to shoot like a 9-year-old and questioning if the makers are paying attention to what they're doing. Or Otacon doing the animation of pushing up his glasses multiple times even after he said that he's not wearing glasses. How do you miss that? Like the dwarf gecko only attacking Snake at the end while Otacon is over there cracking the system, which makes you question if he needed to be there and waters down the scene right before it. You mean to tell me that Snake didn't need to microwave himself in order to save the world? There's just a lot of scenes that you just have to question. Why did Naomi have coitus with Otacon in the first place if she wants to die? And why does she choose to die right here, right now, after she was all up on Vamp? Kojima's like, Otacon needs to cry because fan service. Fan service. That pretty much sums up the whole game. The grand conclusion to the long epic, together with a forced wedding at the end of the movie. All these story bits just come out of nowhere, like Snake is already old at the beginning of the game. Oh, but don't worry, they'll let you put on a young Snake as a face camo. Also others like the boss faces, and even MGS1 Snake. Fan service. I'm not gonna lie, I used the MGS1 Snake. That was pretty cool. The best of the throwbacks though would have to be sneaking through Shadow Moses after a huge graphical upgrade. Getting to see the maps from different angles and finding items in the same places is just a nice touch. It's the type of fan service that actually works. It's just sad that Kojima didn't quite land the execution. The dwarf gecko are crawling everywhere. Nothing satisfying comes out of sneaking through Shadow Moses. The amount is so absurd that it has to be on purpose. What happened to the little details that made the series so special? What happened to those little things that made it feel like there was some love poured into it? Why can't I slip in bird poop in MGS4? But forget carefully crafted detail, we have nanomachines. All the wacky bosses we have throughout the series, it's all nanomachines. Like Vamp's regen ability. I would have been happy if Kojima just left a little mystery or added some build up to it, instead of just tossing all the cool stuff into, oh, it's just little robots. Right, that's why the Sorrow can be a ghost and Vamp can run on water. Why not spend more time on getting Vamp's regen ability and just give it to everyone and just be done with it? Just throw the story right into the garbage.
Make sure you stay hydrated and load up on Nano!
Later it's revealed that Psycho Mantis was controlling Screaming Mantis this whole time. How? I mean, it was cool and funny, but then it kind of ruins the character's last moments in MGS1.
I've ever used my power to help someone. It's strange. It feels kind of nice.
MGS4 is all over the place and it's one of the most baffling games to take a close eye at. At least there is some good gameplay moments like tracking Naomi, with enemies just waiting to ambush you around the corner and you have to take it real slow. And of course the mech fight with Ray. Even though it's pretty basic, you finally get to play as a Metal Gear that you have always watched from the cutscenes, while getting that satisfying crunch of playing as a mech. The fourth wall breaking nostalgia fight with Liquid Ocelot is also quite fun, especially when they play those old familiar songs from the previous games, like Snake Eater. It's like an old school Dragon Ball Z fight where they beat each other until they can't stand anymore. And of course the fan pandering wouldn't be complete without Ocelot throwing up his gang sign before he dies. Also, let's ignore that Ocelot came onto the ship and somehow carried him to the top of the ship to fight. We can put that into the wacky fun category. I still think that I enjoyed the game way more when Raiden was on screen. Even though they overuse him quite a lot, he's like the Deus Ex Machina that never dies. I'm glad at least he got a happy ending to his broken life. He grew up as a child soldier, got brainwashed by robots, then got turned into a robot without a jaw. On top of that, he got his woman taken away by the real-life version of his boss, Colonel Campbell, that messed him up in MGS2. I'm glad the last one wasn't true and they bent the rules to make him kind of human again, and with a non-see-through jaw. I still don't know if Rose is real. Does anyone know if Rose is real? I'm glad something came out good because Snake is an old pervert that lacks any of his original charm. The crew from MGS3 all turned to the dark side and the story is basically in a different language. Kojima must have been so pissed that he had to continue the series that he sabotaged it. And if that's true, all because it's meant to be a bad game doesn't mean that it isn't a bad game.
How do you go from making a game like Metal Gear Solid 2 that messes with fan expectations to making something like Metal Gear Solid 4, the fan service gone wrong? I would pass. Pretend it doesn't exist? Maybe play it for science? I can understand people liking Kojima for the past games, but Metal Gear Solid 4 is like the Batman vs Superman of the series. Even though I didn't like MGS2 as much as the next guy, I can understand why people like that game. There were clues throughout the whole game showing you that there is something more to figure out. MGS4 is like a turned inside out MGS2. I wanted to like that game. The beginning was great, but I just don't like the smell of garbage.
Oh my god. I can't wait to play this.